So this is a lecture on pretty much the basics of modding, just explaining what modding is, how modding works, and then finally we're just going to go through a map live, just to kind of give an example of how to mod as well. But firstly, just to explain what modding is. Modding is effectively giving other mappers constructive criticism and suggesting improvements on the map. Also includes checking if the map breaks ranking criteria. Now, one of the first things I'm just going to mention about modding is one of the big things to do when it comes to modding is understanding a mapper's intentions to be able to give good suggestions, which is probably one of the hardest things to do when it comes to modding. You need to try to understand what a mapper is trying to do with a certain pattern, which means that when modding, and the more that you mod, the better you will actually become at analyzing maps. This is why I think modding is really good to learn. Even if you don't plan to do a lot of modding, it helps improve your map analysis skills, and it's stuff that you can, in turn, apply to your own maps. Now, modding itself, just a very brief explanation. Depending on the mapper's skill level, you kind of need to mod in different ways. So just super generally, mappers who don't have a grasp on fundamentals, or maybe more beginner mappers, the most important thing to do with these maps is to point out general map-wide issues and explaining those issues in detail, rather than explaining, giving comments on specific patterns. So an example of that would be a beginner mapper who, let's say, all of their slider shapes are inconsistent and there's bad playfield usage. It's best to explain that in the map as a whole, rather than, for example, copy pasting one slider and saying fix this slider. Now,
Then maybe you can use examples though, at least in the
yeah,
slider case, instead of just saying all of your sliders are too inconsistent. Part of the explanation could also be look at slider 1 and slider 2, or just send 2 timestamps and say these 2 slider shapes, or 5 or 3, they all represent the same thing, but they're all of them are different. It can maybe be slightly different or more similar.
yeah, the good thing about modding a beginner's map is, for example, if you try to explain why slider shapes need to be consistent to a beginner mapper, it's kind of hard to give examples. It's a lot easier for someone to understand those kinds of ideas when you're giving examples in a map that they've created. So on the other end of this spectrum, if you're modding someone who may be a more experienced mapper, it's kind of the opposite. Experienced mappers, usually you only need to identify specific issues, and there isn't need to go like in-depth explanation. So let's say an object was spaced too far. For a beginner mapper, you might want to explain why they may not want to space it far. For example, the object doesn't deserve emphasis. It being spaced far is a huge difficulty spike. You won't need to explain that to an experienced mapper because there's some shared knowledge in mapping concepts. Although that's not to say experienced mappers can't have issues that repeat and that are map wide. And then in the middle, let's say an intermediate mapper usually benefits from both some general explanations and specific issues. So when I start modding, the first thing I do is try to understand the mapper's skill level and what the mapper kind of understands when it comes to mapping. If I know the skill level of the mapper, then it helps me properly format and explain in the appropriate amount of detail in my mods. Because if, let's say, for example, I modded a new mapper's map, but I didn't go into detail like I would on an experienced mapper's, then the beginner mapper's not really going to benefit from that because then I'll be pointing out issues, but they're not really sure why they're issues, if you understand.
Can I maybe say something?
Yep.
I think it's generally the best thing you should do is sort of initially just go ahead and maybe look for a few specific issues, and then as soon as you notice a general issue, that should be where you sort of first start to formulate that one. I think in general, whether you have an experienced or inexperienced mapper, or I guess the more inexperienced they're going to be, the more the issues are going to be general. And so you should always sort of start looking if any particular issues become a major one, then formulate that one as the first kind of point in your mod. Another point about the experience or the skill level or whatever of the mapper, I think depending on their like experience, what you should pay attention to is like how many say buzzwords you're using. If it's a really beginner mapper, then you should use the least amount of buzzwords possible. What I mean by a buzzword is basically something like, say, when I shorten half beat slider or half beat gap or something to 1/2 gap, 1/2 slider, a more experienced mapper will sort of understand what that means, and it will also just shorten my mod and make it maybe easier to read for them. But for an inexperienced mapper, it will seem like a bunch of word salad. If I'm, let's say, put a bunch of these different gaps into my mod. So that's something to consider as well. If you have a beginner mapper, you should try to, or if you notice that it's a beginner mapper, make your wording more simple.
Yeah, one thing that is quite worth doing, for example, new mappers, yeah, certain buzzwords or terms such as, just a funny example, just a coincidence, buzz slider. A new mapper might not know what a buzz slider is, but what I find is good is not just to oversimplify, but maybe explain what a buzz slider is, and then in the future they will know what the word buzz slider means.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is first thing starting modding is basically assess the mapper's skill level and check for any general issues. Depending on the skill level, it means that you're going to need to mod in a different way and use different kind of wording.
Also, not being afraid to use DM, so beginner mapper helps a ton, is what you said, Yukinawa. Yeah, I think in general, maybe we can talk about this more later. In general, there seems to be a kind of like expectation, or there's a difference in expectation when you're modding in a modding v2 discussion versus outside of it. It seems it's generally sort of expected as there's a kind of etiquette that if you're modding in a modding v2 thread, you're supposed to mod very subjectively. You're not supposed to give much input that's just like subjective from you. You're supposed to talk about either specific patterns or larger scale things in different tabs, etc. And it's generally supposed to be more constructive. But outside, and you're not supposed to say patronize the mapper by explaining like super basic things. Now, some of those things then can be kind of bad, especially when it comes to beginner mappers, because you maybe want to be a little bit more subjective, talk about your own perspective to them, or just do explaining instead of talking about specific issues within the map. Just talking about maybe a kind of mapping meta more generally speaking, as opposed to specifically about that map. In modding v2, that seems to be an expectation that you're supposed to only talk about that map, and then only use other maps as like examples. Now, technically speaking, you could sort of ignore this kind of etiquette, but oftentimes I feel like it's just useful to maybe with beginner mappers just communicate with them in DMs as well.
Now, when it comes to writing wall mods and explanations like that, I mean, it is usually etiquette to not do that in the general and timeline tabs, which we'll go over in a moment. But there is actually a section for stuff like that that's quite useful called reviews. People use reviews for that quite a lot. And also, if you are helping, let's say it's someone's first map, for example, and you do leave a wall mod, you can always leave a hype or something just to say, message me if you have any questions. That's also quite good. I used to do that quite a lot, and it's a lot easier to explain stuff in DMs rather than a slow back and forth on modding V2. But yeah, this is yeah, it is good to do that. I mean, at that point as well, when you do speak to new mappers, uh, I used to get this a lot because I would ask new mappers to DM me, and then let's say 2 weeks later, they message me saying, "Oh, I started a new map. Can you take a look at it for me, please?" You end up accidentally mentoring them. But that's
Sometimes I have exchanges like that for like one time, and then they don't contact me again.
that's how I ended up accidentally mentoring Fusion.
Let's go.
Um, but yeah, that's quite good. Although there's a lot of investment when it comes to doing something like that. So if you did just want to strictly look at as many maps as possible, depends on your motivation, whether you want to improve your modding or help other mappers. So that's enough about mapper experience. Now the next thing to talk about really is just quite simply the structure of a mod. So the general structure of a mod is firstly point out the issue and give an example of the issue and explain what the issue is. Secondly, the reasoning as to why it's an issue. And thirdly, now the third one is kind of optional, depending on the mapper's skill level. The third one is a suggestion as to how they could improve it. So I'll actually show some examples of mods that have a good format.
Yeah, I will maybe say one little thing again about why you do that about experience again. I think generally speaking, there's more of an expectation to give a suggestion if you're modding something from an intermediate or beginner mapper, because those kind of mappers will have a bit of a harder time coming up with maybe a solution to the problem you suggested, or in general, just giving them solution is going to increase their repertoire of what they know, how to fix the problems, etc. With a more experienced mapper, there's a kind of expectation that, well, if it's a common issue, then they should know kind of how to fix it. Like, you can maybe sort of point them in the direction saying, oh, well, you generally speaking should increase the spacing here or something, and they will be like, okay, I guess I know what pattern to do now. I know what pattern would increase spacing, so I'm going to do that. Giving super specific suggestions to more experienced mappers might even make it more likely that they will reject your point. It can sometimes happen where instead of the person responding to you focusing on the actual issue, they will focus instead on the suggestion and sort of deny your mod by talking about how they don't like the suggestion. So sometimes it can be good to just exclude the suggestion outright if
Yeah,
you have a more experienced mapper.
so so even though I've said you need to put an issue, reasoning, and then a suggestion. That's not to say that the mod needs to be huge. Here's an example of just a small mod that follows that format. So I've pointed out the timestamp of the problem. I've mentioned it's an obscured reverse. That's the issue. The reasoning, hard to tell if it's a repeat, especially due to the low SV. And then the suggestion, would recommend spacing more from the slider end. So it's quite a short mod, but it's covered all 3 points in the structure. And there's not really much more to say about it. But for example, if you were to remove, let's say, this last sentence, a beginner mapper may not know how to fix it. Or let's say you remove the middle part. I've pointed out an issue, but I've not said why it's an issue. So the mapper might be more hesitant to actually apply the mod.
Also,
That's
I
why
feel like a mod was just worse than it would just be obscured reverse bad.
pretty much, yeah.
No
Now
reason why.
there is
Just bad.
something to say when it comes to modding. Two examples: modding of people's maps of people that you know, or modding maps of people who are very experienced. You could
Mm.
probably say obscured reverse bad, and that person will probably know what to do. But it's usually best, just in case if you don't know the mapper, it is best to just cover everything and just make sure you've given a proper explanation.
Yeah, especially with say ranking criteria violations, it's really easy to experience mappers to not explain it at all. You can kind of just go, "This is a full screen 1-4 jump," and then they will be like, "Oh, What the fuck? I accidentally moved the node in the timeline. That's not supposed to be there.
Oh, by the
It
way,
will.
my desktop capture is also really bright.
Yes.
Um, let me just see if I can like quickly fix it. Okay, probably not. Okay, it's going to be a little bit scuffed, but that's fine. Still readable. Kind of. I'll just darken it in the recording. So yeah, just super easy. I'm going to go to another example. Which was... So this is an example of applying this to a general issue. So kind of like how we mentioned before, there was like an issue in like the entirety of my hard diff. So rather than putting all of these individual examples in the timeline, what Celektus has done is put it in the general tab. So the general tab is where you would put specific issues which apply to the whole map, rather than pointing each of these individual ones out. So firstly, the timestamps and the issue. Secondly, is the reasoning as to why it's an issue. And now, actually, Celi didn't really put suggestion, although the suggestion was kind of implied.
Yeah, and we talk more about that one actually in
We did,
DMs.
yeah, we
But it's
talked
not
about in
visible
DMs.
here.
Yep.
Then the last thing at the bottom is just an exception actually, which is I guess also kind of outlier kind of thing. Sometimes some things can I feel like when I mod certain things, say with beginners or intermediate or maybe even experienced people, they might think that this thing I'm saying is also applying to something else. But then I can, but if I don't think that way, I can maybe make an exception.
Yeah, so this is
It's a good mod, Yukinoa. Such good mod. Long equals good. Okay.
So yeah, pretty
Boring.
much.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the two kinds of mods. Are there any questions so far?
In the lactose guide, there's a funny example of a really short mod.
No.
Just saying blanket at the same time points out the issue, the reason for the issue, and gives a suggestion. That's funny.
That's kind of funny.
From now on, I will also make mods that are just blanket full stop.
Okay. The next thing from here now we've given pretty much an explanation of kind of how modding works and just like general modding tips. We'll actually like mod something whilst explaining further stuff. So you might think now, wow, modding is like so cool. How do I find a mod? How do I find a mod map to mod? There's many places in which you can find maps to mod. Just because modding itself is quite a community thing. There's a lot of things and terminology that the modding community has that might be good to know. I'll be quite surprised if you didn't already know these, but just to like quickly go over them. So a lot of the times when you try to find a map to mod, there's two main types of mods. NM, so normal mods, and M4M, which is mod for mods. Requesting a normal mod means you will mod the person's map, but you won't get anything in return. And mod for mod means you will mod the person's map, and they will mod a map for you in return. There is also a third kind, which is modding for tickets, which is basically I mod your map, but then it's like an IOU, like you owe me a mod for the future. So if you ever see someone mentioning tickets, it's basically like an IOU of a mod. Um,
People rarely use those or put those as like a thing. I have never really seen it.
I have, yeah. A lot of the times people will want to do mod for mods, but not have a map ready, so they'll use tickets so
Yeah.
that when they've got a map ready, they can use the tickets and get mods on it. Now, to find maps to do a normal mod on, so ones where you just mod for nothing in return, there's like loads of different ways to do it. Firstly, one way you can do it is create a modding queue where you allow other mappers to request mods. So you can find these on the forum. Where is it?
Modding queues under beat maps. Go for
I'm
double
just
here, mouse.
blind. So there's modding queues on beatmaps where you just create a thread like this person did. That's a
That's a funny thread.
I'm gonna go to a different one. Yeah, where there's just a thread. Maybe when you do create a thread like this, you can give some kind of requirements, like you might want to only mod certain types of maps or genres or lengths.
Yeah. No 8-star 5-second maps.
Another,
Only rankable.
and you can also a lot of people open and close queues by changing the title and then like their final post.
Yeah. Then I maybe put a message in the actual thread saying, always look at the last message I sent in the thread below.
Yeah,
There's other things like say some people put in like code words that you are supposed to put in if you want to get a mod, showing that you've actually read the thing, as opposed to just clicking on the forum post and be like, no mod, please,
yeah.
thanks, bye.
Like for example, like they might hide in their post somewhere, or you could do this as well if you wanted to. Something like if you read my rules, post your favorite Toho character or something like that. In my opinion, it's kind of stupid to do that because if someone doesn't follow your rules, you just don't mod the map. So I don't understand why you need to get people to go through like some extra effort.
Kinda. I also feel like when you first mod when you first get into this, you tend to make a really elaborate post with many rules, and then if you become more experienced, you just like send maps, then your post is done.
The only reasoning would be if you get a lot of requests, it can help filter out
Me
people
a
who
few
may
more
not have followed
requests.
the rules. But yeah,
When people ask you for like fan art so you can find some cute anime girls, let's go. That's a good
this
reason.
is just people getting people just send cute anime girls for their collection.
Yes. I make a mod queue as well, so I can find more things to masturbate to.
True. So there isn't just a lot of people don't use the forums too much now. The forums do still get used quite a lot, but you'll find people who are more into modding use separate websites. And this is an example of one of those websites. It's called osumodcom. I'll just zoom in because it's a bit zoomed out.
And it's hard to read with the brightness so high.
So you can verify this website with your Osu account, and basically you can create. It's a lot more functional than the forum because people can request. You can set limits on how many requests you receive, and you can like put the status of each mod. So if I wanted to request on this queue, you can also show rules as well, like this. Yeah, and there's also like a mod for mod thing here as well. So yeah, a lot of people use either the forums, this website. There's a couple of other websites like this as well.
There's also in the past been like Discord servers organized around this. I've once organized one with people, but then my account got deleted, so
Well,
I
the
don't know
final
if that exists anymore.
the final thing I was going to mention, final two things. Now, you can get people to request maps to you directly by creating queues and such. There are two other ways you can get mods. The first way is in-game using mod requests. I'll just like quickly switch to that.
Hashtag modrec.
Mod recs. There's no point even switching my screen because there's nothing in there. I've only just opened the channel. But there's an in-game IRC channel called mod requests or mod recs. Let me
Does everyone know that one? Does anyone not know that one?
just like there.
Yes, that one. Time to post in it. Be funny.
Post a map. Yeah, so if this is useful for finding maps to mod, if you just want something quick to mod, but also if you wanted to get mods. The only thing you need to be cautious of, a lot of people who use the mod request channel are usually newer mappers. So the quality of maps in there is usually lower. So depending on that, you might not want to start modding from this queue, depending on how confident you are in explaining stuff to newer mappers like this one here.
I can't see the screen. Fuck. Your thing is still loading for me.
Oh, that's weird.
I can't see my own post.
Why
It'd
is
be
the
funny if I now get a mod on this.
why is the color gone back to normal?
It randomly does sometimes. I have no idea. Turkish mod queue.
But the other way you can find maps to mod is a lot of mapping servers have modding queues in them or modding request channels. I mean, there's literally one in this server. Like, if you wanted to find maps to mod as well, you could go to where is it?
HS and modrec? No, it's
Feedback. Yeah, you could just go to feedback recs and give some mods in there. A lot of mapping servers have these kinds of channels, so you can just go through if you want something random to mod.
yeah. Sometimes there are also channels where people don't mod your map, but they like give feedback right on the spot, like in Mentorship program.
And in Cozy Mapper Cafe as well. They've got an active feedback channel.
Oh wow, rarity. It might be noticeable that just in general when it comes to feedback, getting feedback in this game is kind of is somewhat of a scarce resource, mostly because people usually just rely on others doing it for free instead of doing the mod requests, or at least that's not done super often. And just in general, modding a lot can be kind of like what's it, like taxing, annoying. You can get even after when I mod a lot. Sometimes I'm just get really tired of doing it at all after like a week or so of high activity.
Yeah, it's easy to get burned out quickly.
Yeah, and at the same time, there's always like 5,000 other people giving you suggestions, like asking you to do things. Oh yeah, Jordan is getting modded right now on my set, so don't worry about that one.
Am I actually? Why? No, not half slashed. This is my. I see these notifications in my nightmares.
God.
So what we're going to do now then is what I've just explained about finding maps to mod. We're actually going to find a map using this method. Now we're not going to mod Celektus' map. Sorry.
I would have thought.
But we'll actually just get a map from this server.
That's a good idea, maybe.
Hey, Jack.
Afterwards, I can maybe do one as well.
Jack's Films wants a mod on a 30-second set. That's perfect.
Nah. Oh no! Really?
So
is it a meme again, or is it a serious thing?
it's artist Rick and Morty, so it must be good. That's some good metadata right there. Rick and Morty, Rick and Morty. Let me switch Oh, I need to This is going to be tricky.
What?
How am I going to stream audio whilst I'm just going to have to switch back and forth?
Maybe I can stream the mod post.
But then it won't be recorded.
That's true.
Okay.
Wait, aren't you like screen recording?
Yeah, but but if you're making the mod, oh yeah, you could make the mod posts, and I'll just switch to Discord when you do
Oh,
it.
I wasn't saying make the post, but just like they will be live displayed on my screen. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I can make them if you want to.
Yes, let's do it that way. No,
Makes
actually,
sense.
I'll do them. It's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Should I still screen share the modding discussion?
Yeah, I suppose. Where did the map just go?
Can people have multiple screen shares open without Nitro?
No.
Like at the same time?
No.
Yeah, otherwise you can just switch back and forth between my screen and Jordan's, if you send me the map. Basically, I will just have like his discussion or the modding discussion page open, and he will have in-game open.
Yep.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Okay then.
Send me.
So it's the Jack's Films map in the feedback requests. It's like one of the first ones.
Okay, I guess it.
Right, so when it comes to starting modding something, like people have different methodologies of what they like to do. As mentioned before, there's like two main things, checking ranking criteria and then checking the map itself. I like to start with checking ranking criteria. So what I usually do when I do that is I actually start by opening Mapset Verifier. We went over Mapset Verifier in a previous lecture.
The 8-hour super lecture.
Yep.
Okay, I hope everyone can see my screen. Also, Jordan, you or should I maybe explain? Maybe I explain the interface of the modding v2.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Open the. We'll both see the same thing. So.
Okay, let me quickly mute your screen thing. So when you're on the page, first of all, I guess, when you're on the map or whatever, I mean, most of you will notice, but I guess for those who won't know and watch the recording, this will still be useful. So blah blah blah. Let's go top to bottom of whatever he means. Here's just the name of the thing. Here you can select different difficulties. Obviously, if you want to mod the easy, you have to go to that one. It will be displayed which posts are yours. You can click on this and then it will only show yours. Here's notes from the is it map sub creator and guest difficulty creator, I think. Anyone who can create notes, and I think only guest difficulty creators and map set creators can. Here are resolved issues. You can always click on one of these and then it will take you to it. Here are pending suggestions, which are pending suggestions and problems. We'll go over the distinction a little bit. Nothing here right now, but there would be something. There would be praises. If it's not displayed in a timeline here, it can also be down here. There are numbers. Say so here in this section, there's a praise being displayed. these numbers will also change depending on which thing you select. So here it's everything is 0, here it's 7.
They can also change depending if you filter by user as well.
Yeah, so if I just go, if there are multiple users, say if I made one post or something, then here my name would appear and then all the numbers would change here. But obviously there's nothing there yet. Here's some information that was also earlier in the map set description, the drain time, BPM, cycle count, slider count, blah blah blah. Yeah, so again this is a timeline, basically from left to right. It's displaying where issues appear. And then you can see, obviously, for example, here there are more issues than in the beginning, etc. Here it's displayed how many hypes a map has. You can hype a map by clicking this button. There's a limited amount of hypes you can give per month, and a map needs 5 by different people to be able to get ranked. And here's a button where I can, if I click on it, I will get what are these notifications if something happens on this. If I click on this, I think I will just get back here. Yeah. Okay, and then we have the tabs here below. Again, earlier the review tab, which I can talk about in a second. The general all difficulties tab. So this will be visible no matter which one you have open here. This is usually for stuff like, say, in this case, metadata, like what the source is, blah blah blah. Sometimes it's useful when the map set creator actually puts his own metadata sources in as a node. That can be nice, especially for BNs and stuff. There can be other issues here, say with hit sounding. If there is no hit sounding difficulty, will probably be best if you can put all of those into the single post instead of having tons of tiny posts on the general all difficulties. That's usually kind of annoying. Yeah. What else kind of things would go into all difficulties? What do you, Jordan? Like.
So it's just like set general stuff. So it might be something like backgrounds, hit sounds as you mentioned, metadata as you mentioned,
or just points that apply over all difficulties.
So yeah, I mean, if hit sounds can apply throughout all difficulties. Let's say, for example, as well. Let's say spinners ended at a different time between difficulties. You might put that on a general all difficulties tab. Although most stuff to do with actual mapping usually ends up going on individual difficulties.
Yeah. Oh, just here example again. Here's the metadata. I've put everything down, even the. I mean, this is this is not visible anywhere, but it's like in the tags and the sources. This was, for example, a mod that it's a specific thing about specific patterns or SVs, and it does apply to all difficulties. I was initially confused, but then he specified. Obviously, hypes also go here. I think you can't even post hypes anywhere. And obviously, random people saying good luck and snare on the spinner. Background size, timing, tags, just very general issues with everything. Yeah, maybe delayed samples, etc. Stuff like that. Stuff about the video. Okay, let's go back. So then we have the general difficulty specific tab. I sometimes see that some new beginner modders make a weird issue where they like post everything in here initially, and then they realize, oh wait, there's a timeline here where I have to put in everything individually.
It's not even just beginner mappers, I do that sometimes.
Sometimes it just happens, yeah. So yeah, these are, we went kind of over it earlier, issues which are more broad about that specific difficulty. Yeah. Timeline as well. Oh, by the way, Jordan, are you gonna make it as a review?
Oh no, we won't do it as a review. Reviews don't get used that much, but if you are going to wall mod and explain stuff in a lot of detail. Rather than put it on individual issues in the generals or timeline, it's usually best to put it in the review section.
Yeah, I can maybe in a little bit explain how it exactly works, because it can be kind of confusing, but because you have to do like specify what kind of posts these are, and then they will actually appear in here, funnily enough, and then they can be upvoted and stuff, and I explain in a second what the upvoting even means, but yeah. Okay, so timeline is for specific issues, like say timestamp specific 1.4 jump, blah blah blah, change it for this or that reason. You put all of those in here. And here's the history where you can see what changes have been made. This is probably not that useful for most people unless they are NATs or BNs doing specific checks on how whether change they've made, whether suggestion they've made has been actually applied or some shit like that. I think you can even can you download like previous versions in here? Actually, I think you can't.
No, although when we go into Mapset Verifier, that can do that.
Oh damn. Okay, so I guess I can explain a little bit here what all this stuff does. So usually there's this pinned button up here. If you scroll around, you will still see your shit being up here. Whatever you type in, then you can obviously press it and it's gone. I think I don't know if there's any point to unpinning it, really. But yeah, say you write down some suggestion, my very good suggestion right here. If I'm in the timeline, I need to get a timestamp, so I guess I just randomly go to my map, to random map, get a timestamp, put it in. I know this song isn't even that long, but hey, let's go. I don't even know what would happen if I put it in here. Probably just something stupid. It would be at the end or something. Anyway, so I can post this as a praise, a suggestion, and a problem. Basically what that means, I mean, praise should be kind of obvious. It's like, kind of, wow, this is so good, incredible. Suggestion would be something like, some kind of like intersubjective or semi-subjective issue. So something that's like, say, about rhythm specifically, maybe spacing. Like the spacing isn't large enough, the spacing is too small, it doesn't represent the intensity of the song correctly. All of that stuff kind of goes with suggestions. As far as I understand, pro and post are usually supposed to be for almost only ranking criteria things, like ranking criteria violations. It's a bit difficult whether, say, like, let's say you have like a general issue, and your issue is like, the spacing in this entire section is like non-existent, nothing is spaced out at all, it doesn't represent the intensity of the song, but all other sections do. That seems like a really major issue, and it seems like a kind of map breaking issue. There is a kind of question, should you put a problem tag on that one? I kind of would say you should, but it's, as people can reasonably disagree about that. Like, some people might argue, okay, this isn't technically speaking a violation of a ranking criteria rule, so you should just put it as a suggestion.
Yeah, a lot of people, there's some disagreement as to what should be suggestions and problems. The general consensus is a problem is for something which needs to be changed because it breaks ranking criteria, and a suggestion is everything else. But there are people who do post problems even though they may not be breaking ranking criteria.
Yeah, good example.
You can basically think of it, if it absolutely has to be changed and there's like not much discussion, then post it as a problem.
Very big problem. Okay. You will also see something funny. I just copied this timestamp here, for example. I can maybe even remove the numbers here. I just make it a timestamp like this. It will tell me there's another timestamp here, then I can click this button and it will take me to that thing. Basically, this is in case for their duplicate posts, so if I, let's say, just do this, and I posted it as a suggestion, obviously this has already been posted, so I'm just like adding crap and don't deserve any like kudosu for this or something.
Now, if you do this and you post it, you check it's already been posted, but you see that the map has not actually applied it, what you can do is you can actually reopen previously resolved issues.
Like I can go down here, you didn't do it, and then I can reopen. Sometimes you can also just reply without reopening in case you think it's you want to contribute to a discussion about a specific issue, but you don't think it like is it's necessary to open it really.
Or another example might be the map has not applied a point and you agree with the mapper, you might want to respond to kind of back the mapper up on another mod.
Yeah, something like that. That can be good. Especially if it's say a longer type of discussion. What else? So you can click this button and basically, or you can't post until you've clicked this. This doesn't address my actual concern. Yeah. Another thing that's kind of useful. Maybe I'll even post like something in here just to show how it works. Like I can click on this permalink thing. I could put the text up here. This is a test, and then I can actually go. In fact, you can also like click on the different tabs, and it will still keep a message. But yeah, so I can go in here and post this as praise. Now the funny thing is, this will now appear as a number, and if I actually click on the number, it will take me to this post I permalinked. That can be kind of useful. I guess if you're doing it maybe with a newer mapper, they might not understand how this works. They might just see the number and get confused. Or maybe they will understand that it's a blue color and it's like underlined. Maybe they can click on it. But maybe keep that in mind. So yeah, you can do stuff like this. It can be useful for actually referencing things you have done somewhere else. Maybe I can even find a good example. I know one, actually. So this is a guest difficulty I made for someone. Let's go to timeline. I think it's actually a note. Yeah. So I made this note that I changed something without anyone modding my map. I was basically someone modded the white modded something somewhere. And it said this specific thing here is blah blah blah, I'm not a fan of this. And then I said gave my reasoning for why I think it's still fine. But then I realized, wait, actually the point that I made applies to a different pattern. So I had to change that pattern, and then I was here basically saying, given my reasoning here, I undermapped the first node of this triple or something. So if it turned out that this discussion was actually resolved by me agreeing with him and changing my mind, I would then have to also maybe change this pattern. And I'll just use this kind of the permalink to sort of make it clear. And maybe even be other things you can do with it. Like say if you're responding to some mods. I have another example of that, I think. You can sometimes do stuff where it's like, oh, I use this when someone repeats the point they've made somewhere else. Can be like, use a permalink and say, I have the same reasoning as. Oh, like here, this is a good example. But other way around, they are like, here, this is an issue. It's the same as this issue. And then you can read and say, okay, it's the same issue. Instead of them having to basically copy paste like wording, which would probably be unnecessary. Yeah. What else? Guess maybe I can show a little bit of the rest here. So there are obviously these upvote and downvote buttons. Do downvotes nowadays, do they work?
Only BNs can use them.
Oh, okay, I see. But yeah, basically what upvotes do is you can give someone kudosu. If you click this button, he will get kudosu for this. And then depending on whether it's actually valid that they get it or not. The BN can go, okay, no,
You
actually,
can-
this is just praise.
You can actually get kudosu from a praise or a hype. But yeah, depending on how many upvotes a post has as well, it increases the amount of kudosu. So if a post has like 3 upvotes, it gets 2 kudosu. If it has 5, it gets 3 kudosu, something like that. That doesn't really apply that much though, because usually the only person who would upvote the post is the mapper themselves. Now,
Yeah.
if a post has been upvoted, what BNs and NATs can do, they can downvote posts. It's grayed out at the moment, but they can actually downvote posts and refuse the kudosu. Now, kudosu is actually worthless.
You can't use it for anything. You can only like show on your profile. Well, I have a big number. I'm a big modder.
Basically, but kudosu itself doesn't really have any value other than showing us a number on your user page. What some people do, like as explained before, Sally mentioned when posting hit sounding issues, it's best to put it all in one post. Some people might put it in multiple posts in order to get multiple upvotes, but because kudosu is effectively valueless, there's not much utility in actually doing that.
Yeah, would be kind of just making a shitty post.
In every unique set you get kudosu, that's true, but whether you get 1 or 2 kudosu, you still get the same mod score. Now, the only other use for kudosu is the minimum kudosu requirements for BN applications. But that's the requirements are already so low, it doesn't really matter anyway.
Yeah, if you're like a somewhat older or more experienced modder like me, you have like thousands already. It's kind of, I think for me it pushes up my mod score like relatively high, so I have to just get the most minimum like activity and I could apply every time. I guess in some ways it's also kind of good, because why would an experienced modder need to have like even more activity than yeah. Anyway,
I'm kind of a bit surprised. Do you know there was previously a trial with Taiko Catch the Beat where the modding requirements for activity were actually removed for BN applications. It was trialed in like March, and there was a plan to actually do this for standard as well, to remove kudosu and kudosu and activity requirements, but it never actually got put into effect.
Well then, like many changes into the system. They're just like, we need to change this. 50 people respond to the thread saying yes, no, and then it's like, well, everyone has said everything they wanted to say, and then it dies. Many things are like that. Okay, just a few more things, I guess. I mean, here are some options where you can sort things, like sorting by timeline. Obviously,
now sorting is quite useful, because what you may want to do once a mapper's applied your mod, if it's a newer mapper or you want to check how they've responded, you can sort by last update, and then it'll just show what's recently been resolved, which is quite useful.
So kind of funny that this line disappears. I guess that makes sense. And then here's a little less useful thing, but I guess it's can sometimes be useful to make things more visible. You can like here collapse different things, and then you can do collapse all and expand all. I've never used this, but I guess it could be useful.
Oh, one thing
I've used in the past.
One thing we've not mentioned actually is there's different character limits depending on which tab you're in.
Oh yeah, like here it's in the timeline it's 750. At some point it was like 500, which is
yeah.
And then in the general tab, what is it? It's like a really high one.
1,500, I think.
What a good mod! Look at my incredible mod.
Or maybe the limit got removed.
That's a good one. Okay. Is there anything else? I forgot. Obviously, you guys know how to do timestamps. I mean, it says in the options here as well how to do them. Creation time. Oh, okay, last update creation time makes sense. Yeah, let maybe go to one more set where there's like a few more users, so I can just show the sorting thing a little bit more again. I guess over kind of users maybe. Yeah, like here. Whoa, that's such a long list. Cool. I can see. Oh, this person hasn't done anything in this div. Oh, and here down here you can obviously also now see numbers that are a bit grayed out, or hard to see, but there are numbers of how many posts have been made.
Okay, good. Half he didn't mod my div.
What? He did though, no? Because he got. Oh, he just got them anyway, right?
Yeah, I'm watching the set.
Maybe he will too, though. So. Yeah, so if I change the user, it will change numbers, obviously. Most of them are just all resolved or something. Yeah. I don't know if there's anything else. Oh, you can do the difficulty owner thing, where if you're the map set host, you can like, say, this export is made by XYZ person, and then assign them, and then they can resolve posts as well. Or I guess I can even show here. Let's say someone made a post, it's issue. Fuck. Issue. Did it? Oh, I have to do everyone. Wait, it's still not there. What? Where the fuck did it go? I'm confused. Anyway, you can have obviously options like here where you can resolve for post if it's open or something. Can I put it in all difficulties? I'm confused anyway.
Anyway, yeah, the difficulty owner is not something you're really going to deal with when modding, but just remember, if difficulty owner isn't set, that's something also worth checking for. If you notice that the set owner has a GD, but the difficulty owner is not set, it's always worth posting that, because then the difficulty owner can respond to your mods directly.
Yeah. Also, here's a little modding history thing you can view from people. I'm not gonna open it up right now, but
yeah, but that's like all of the options in the modding v2 page. There is also, you switch between difficulties in the top right if you was ever modding anything other than standard. With the icons in the top right.
Oh, if it's a hybrid set, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, then I guess you can start modding?
Yeah, so now we'll start by modding this map. So
I got pinged.
What I usually do before I start modding a map, like I say, I do check the ranking criteria first. But before we even check the ranking criteria, I just like to look at the difficulties to know what I'm dealing with. I can kind of get an idea of what the set is generally like, and then also kind of evaluate the mapper's skill as well.
Also, I personally will usually start with low diffs, but it doesn't really matter whether you start with low or high difficulty. If you are modding the model, maybe you're just like a loser who doesn't only mods top difficulty.
And this is actually an undistant snap teaser.
Oh, that's interesting.
Kind of works though. So yeah, I just like to skim through all divs. Let me actually just switch my capture. Oh wait, no, it's already showing. Okay.
Yeah, let me know where you post something if you do it. What an incredible song.
Is this an interesting normal?
Yeah. That note at the end.
I thought that was a hard when I opened it up.
Yeah, actually. And this is like a light insane.
Yeah, so the first thing we can say immediately is the mapper has based the difficulty names based on the star rating and not actually how it's mapped. Because this song is so short, all of the star ratings are slightly lower than they usually would be. So really this 3-star hard is probably mapped more like a light insane, even though the star rating's quite low, but it's only low because the song's short.
I saw those rhythms. Yeah, from this we can also sort of get like a little bit of an impression of the mapper's experience, maybe.
Yeah, so we can probably say this mapper is somewhere between beginner and intermediate. So it's going to be good to we can point out specific patterns, but we will also need to explain some general map-wide stuff in some detail.
Yeah. Maybe you can even send him the video. Wow.
Wow. So yeah, now I know where this mapper kind of stands. What I will actually do now is map set verifier. I'm going to switch between capturing the game and capturing my window. Oh, my screen. So then both can be seen. Oh, then I can actually show the mod posts. Okay. Perfect. So, yes. So map set verifier. I'll link, if you've not seen it, I'll link a timestamp to where we cover this in like a lot more detail. But we can just use this for ranking criteria checks. So first thing I do when I open up a map, evaluate the mapper's skill and then check ranking criteria. And then I'll usually start by general. So incorrect marker format, romanized title field, Two Crows theme, Feet, Ryan Edler, and what's actually the issue here?
Can look at the specifics, right, of it?
Yes, you
Like,
can click the button here. Oh, it's the it's supposed to be feet with a lowercase f for standardization.
sure.
So there was already a post on the metadata. So I'm going to go to the map set. I'm going to click on the discussion tab. It was under general. Here, fix metadata. I'm going to reopen this. So the title, I'm going to respond here.
Also, if you use titles and stuff like that, sometimes it's good to put them into parentheses.
Yep, so it's
To
clear.
distinguish them from your actual text.
Now, because this map is somewhat beginner to intermediate, I'm going to explain this in a little bit more detail. I'm actually just going to get the ranking criteria up so I can directly quote it, which is sometimes good. Because a lot of people, the more you mod, the more you become familiar with the ranking criteria. But some people don't really know the ranking criteria too well or know where to look in it. So sometimes it is good to quote it directly so they know like specifically what rule they're breaking.
Or guideline.
Or guideline.
Also, you could also quote from mapping tools as well. Maps are verifier, sorry.
That's true.
Yeah.
I can't even
Maybe
find the ranking criteria.
further up, the box you're on right now with your cursor, beat map submission and ranking. Below.
Oh, below. Okay. There it is.
Remember, there's a ranking criteria specific for OSU, also standard and everything, every mode. So
Yeah.
this is the every mode one, and obviously it's about metadata.
So this rule is under standardization. Also, modding does just help you understand the ranking criteria better.
Or remember it better for the BN test.
It does.
A lot of the questions in the BN test are about the ranking criteria, and you're allowed to read it while taking the test.
Now, in looking in this in a bit more detail, I have actually noticed something, which Maps Verifier didn't say. It does say alternative casing may be used to match the rest of the field.
What does that even mean?
Everything here is capitalized, so it's okay to capitalize feet.
Is it?
Yeah.
I think it's not actually.
Alternative casing may be used to match the rest of the field. So alternative capitalization.
I guess this is one of those issues where it's not 100% clear.
Now this is something where we can post it to say that you should use it, but then we can quote the ranking track criteria to say it's not necessary. But it because this is optional, so we can still post this issue.
Yeah. Then maybe a BN will reopen it or something. Or
Yeah.
make it more clear.
Oh,
Maybe you should have made that one also a quote. Oh yeah, you can edit things, right? I think there's certain things you can't actually edit. Like, I think it's if you're resolving something.
if something has been resolved, I think, or if
No,
there's a
only if you as the map set host, I think if you do a reply that's resolving, or if you do reply at all, you can't edit it. You have to add another one. Yeah. You can't put give kudos to replies, even if the replies are like better than the actual post.
yeah, that's one
I've
negative
yeah
thing about replies.
yeah I've once tried to on GitHub to make a suggestion that the comments should also get kudosu, but it was just closed. So maybe I should reopen it or make a new one at some point.
So now this is ranking criteria check stuff. So we're missing genre tag and language tag. I'm just going to quickly check that in song setup. So it needs to add anime and Japanese because I believe that's what the genres are set to at the on the website. It is possible to add more genre tags, more specific ones, but the bare minimum is to add the genre tags which are shown on the website. So we're going to post this as a problem.
Problem? What?
Yeah, it's a problem. It's against ranking criteria.
Well, it's a great guideline, I think, right? I think that one is actually a guideline. So I
Is
would
that
put it
true?
as. Like it's only so people who look it up inside the game or on the website can actually like
Now
search for it.
this is one of these where it would be very easy to add, and it makes it a lot easier to search. So it would
Yes.
still be possible to add it as a problem. It's
There's
kind
no
of
point to like disagree with this actually.
yeah.
As you're stupid. I said it. Well, it should be unless you're an asshole who don't want your map to be seen by anyone.
True. I will post it as a suggestion though.
Can never go wrong with posting something as a suggestion, I think. Even if it's like a ranking criteria rule.
One important distinction I would like to mention based on suggestions and problems. Whilst they are effectively the same thing, there is a very slight difference in how they're actually used. If a problem is posted on a qualified map, all QATs actually get made aware that a problem's posted. Whereas if you post a suggestion on a qualified map, QATs aren't made aware. So the only time you should really be really careful about which you post it as is if the map is qualified.
I think as a BN it also changes something about if you post a problem, maybe was it that you vetoed the map through that actually? I don't quite remember.
I don't think we're giving advice to BNs here, so
Well, not advice, but if you want to apply for BN, it would be in the BN test.
oh yeah, true, true. So now we've checked the general ranking criteria issues, we can move per difficulty. So this is mentioning combo colors on all difficulties, so this is actually really should have been under general, but whatever. Now there is a rule, as we click on here, it'll give a rule based on luminosity. So combo
Actually,
colors.
guideline, but yeah.
Where is it? Oh, here it is. Combo color number is really bright in kite sections. See example objects. Same as the first check. Okay. Higher than 250. Is that right?
It was gone for a second. It's a guideline, and also it's only you have to use can't use bright if there's key eye, or you can't use bright in the key eye.
Yep.
But it is like one of those suggestions that's like you basically always should apply it. I feel like it almost should be a rule.
I feel this is not correct, so I'm just going to check ranking criteria.
Which one do you mean?
It's telling me it can't be above 250. I'm pretty sure it's
Oh,
lower.
but
Is it like
220.
yeah,
220.
and this luminance is 240. So where is it? It's under
Yeah,
skinning.
even 220 is kind of bright in a way.
Where is it?
It's actually in OSU specific.
Oh, that makes sense.
Because in Taiko you can't have other colors, right?
You can catch the beat, right? Actually, I'm not
Yes.
sure.
I think it in Catch the Beat it also applies. Although actually I think the colors will always be displayed as darker because they have like a shadow on them and stuff. Like the fruits actually appear darker than
Right. Okay,
just tap
here
and
it
zoom.
is. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm actually
220.
going to quote the ranking criteria here as well in this mod
Can even
post.
give quote the reasoning below, right?
Yeah.
But you didn't.
Well, I'm gonna go back to it.
I'm modding, not Jordan's modding. You didn't quote the ranking criteria correctly. One kudosu less.
And then we just copy this, just because, as I say, we kind of identified this mapper as being
Intermediate to beginner. Beginner to intermediate.
yeah, there. Quote it as well. Why not? And I post it as a suggestion because it's a
Welcome back. It's a guideline.
yeah, it's a guideline.
Whether something is a guideline or rule can maybe sometimes also affect how you word something. If I say something is a guideline, or if I say something is a rule, it seems more appropriate to use words like you must or you need.
Yeah,
That's kind of
and if it's a suggestion or something more subjective, it's like you can or you could.
should. It would be better if you did. It would be better if
Yep.
it would improve the map's quality.
So this is we've pretty much touched on all of these, so the only problems left are on easy and normal. We're gonna have to like go into the maps themselves to find out if they're actually things we need to post. Is this difficult? Just like not hit sounded.
We can't hear that right now, but Jord can just tell us.
No, it's not hit sounded.
I like how the bright colors of your screen really show how the luminosity is too high.
Yeah, the only hit sound is on like the last objects. And it's a normal, just a normal hit whistle on the last object. So because this applies to both easy and normal, I've got two options here. I could post it on individual divs or I could just post it in general.
Can you look at the top div? Does that one have hit something? Because then you could maybe also suggest to copy it over.
Oh, it sounded, but it's spamming finishes everywhere, so that's going to be its whole other problem. Yep. Once I've
Nice.
made these posts, we can actually go through subjective stuff or like, yeah, more subjective stuff. And then
Maybe
I'll.
so maybe elaborate a little bit more on. I used the word intersubjective a few times so far. I think some people might kind of already intuitively get what it means. But it's also defined more specifically actually in the I think what's it again? Those guidelines that you're supposed to follow when you're modding something. The code of conduct. It's actually defined in there what intersubjective means. Basically, subjective is broadly speaking in this context that something is an issue which is an issue from your perspective. So you personally think that this is an issue because of personal reasons. Intersubjective would basically be a lot of many people have this kind of opinion, but it still doesn't rise to the level of being objectively against like a set of rules or something. An example of something being intersubjectively bad in awesome mapping would probably be something like um, putting all the vocals on using fucking hell, it's hard to say, like using small spacing into using almost the same spacing everywhere. Most people would agree, almost everyone would agree that using the same spacing for everything, whether it's intense or less intense, doesn't represent the song well at all. But it's not strictly speaking written as like a rule in the ranking criteria, or at least a rule about that one is like written in a more in a way where you have to sort of interpret it or whatever. So that's a kind of intersubjective thing. It's like saying if you made this kind of suggestion, almost every mapper would agree with you, but it's not literally written down as a rule. I guess you could say the luminosity thing would sort of be similar. It would be like a intersubjective issue. Almost everyone would agree. Having strobing lights in the KI, that's like a bad thing. You shouldn't do that. But there's not literally a rule saying don't do that.
Yep, and like quite literally with hit sounding. Technically, this map is hit sounded because the last object is hit sounded, but pretty much uh, most mappers would agree the first 90% of the map should have been hit sounded as well.
Yeah, or another thing would be, let's say the mapper consistently puts the finishes on the snares in the song. In a way, it's consistent, and maybe in a way it doesn't violate like any rules. But most people would agree that's not how you should hit sound, even if you put customs in it.
So
And I
I'm actually,
specifically mean like soft hit finish.
I do feel like this point, easy and normal, should have more hit sounding. Isn't really something I need to explain. I don't really need to explain why it needs more hit sounding
I would
because
do it.
I can already tell. Firstly, it's most likely a mistake because only like the last objects are hit sounded. And secondly, I understand from looking at the mappers top diff, they do understand what hit sounding is and how to hit sound. So it doesn't really need that much explanation. Although it wouldn't hurt to give just something brief.
That's basically what I'm thinking. Wouldn't hurt to give a brief explanation. Maybe give a little suggestion like the song has drums, right? Or like put
Yeah,
whistles on the vocals. Put soft hit whistles on the vocals. Put claps on the snares. Put only finishers on cymbal crashes in the song. That's like the most basic.
something like this.
Yeah. That's fine.
I personally would have just posted that, but I guess we can explain it a little bit. And this is kind of like, I've kind of like accidentally done what I explained before, where I've mentioned putting whistles on vocals / active hit objects. I figured maybe this mapper doesn't understand the term active hit object, so I've given like a brief definition in brackets here. So we can post that. Now, I believe that was everything that
Maps the verifier said.
Maps the verifier said. He said a bunch of stuff like this, but we can kind of ignore this, mainly because, as I mentioned before, this is not a distance snapped difficulty. That's not necessarily a problem, though, for a normal
Maybe use
difficulty.
it later.
We can use this later, yeah. Now we've gone through the ranking criteria checks. Now we can go through individual difficulties and maybe check for either map-wide issues or specific problems. So I'm just going to switch the stream back to my actual client. That last note.
Also, that normal hit whistle on the thing.
Now, what is this? Yeah, there's some slider velocity changes.
So, notice, can you maybe check the time?
Yeah, the time should be fine. So it starts at 480 and it ends at 32. So it's above 30 seconds drain time, so it's fine.
I didn't mean drain time, I just meant timing in general.
Oh.
Offset is correct.
True.
There's
yeah.
also 2 timing points at the beginning.
That's fine though.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
just
the first
time...
one is not necessary. It's like...
It's not a problem though. Like, there's no point asking them to change it. If they've mapped the pickup, yeah.
Maybe.
They've mapped the pickup in the top div, so they kind of need this timing point.
Yeah, it makes sense. I was wondering whether they mapped it in a higher div.
Now, one thing I can see immediately is I think I would actually recommend, firstly, asking the mapper to use distance snap, so there's like more visual space in between objects. Now, this is kind of subjective. It's not technically a problem, but it would make the map look more like visually cohesive. So I think that will be the first problem that I actually post. The weird thing as well is the distance snap actually goes down, but the only reason it went down is because this easy difficulty is actually using slider velocity changes, which is something else which we'll probably mention. Yeah, it went down to 0.9 on that vocal, and then back up to 1, which is like a bit strange. But I'll focus on one thing at a time. I'm going to go to the General tab on the easy difficulty.
Okay.
And I'm not going to do that. I'm going to, firstly, I'm going to point out the issue. So the issue is a lot of the visual spacing is inconsistent between the 1B circles and other patterns, such as, I'm going to give some examples, such as
can also
this.
be at this stage useful to sometimes make pictures.
Yeah.
If you have something like, say, share X, you can actually what you can actually do is take a quick screenshot and then go to the picture chronic. So there's like a thing where you can look at all the recent pictures you've made, and then directly within ShareX you can edit it, like say put in lines and stuff with colors.
Yes, I mean you can just set ShareX to auto upload and copy links to your clipboard, which is like
Well,
way
I know that
easier.
it does. I mean that you specifically like. I'm talking about editing it with ShareX, like putting colored lines in.
Yeah, you can do that before you actually do the capture.
Before you capture.
Yeah,
Didn't know that one. That's
I'll
interesting.
show you.
Can you even show it
Yeah, I can.
in the stream?
So this is another example of like inconsistent spacing.
Although in this case it might be a little bit better because it makes the pattern less confusing.
Yeah,
Could be in this case it could be maybe better to make it more exaggerated. So moving was it one down even further?
I'm just going to quickly reference ranking criteria. Okay. I can reference this guideline here.
What is the guideline?
Time distance equality should be used. Because this is not just, it's visuals and also it breaks this guideline, so there's two reasons.
I guess true.
So I've pointed out my issue here, problem here, and then I'm going to go to suggestion. So I would suggest going through this map and using 1.0x distance snap between all objects. And then this is pretty much it. What I can do as well is I can give as Silly mentioned, a screenshot example. So I'm going to fix this pattern for this person, and then I can screenshot it. Yeah, if you hold down, you can set a key binding for ShareX. It'll bring up like a capture window like this, and then you can like draw stuff on it before you actually capture.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not going to do that. And then I can just screenshot this pattern to show what the map could look like with consistent visual spacing to kind of show how it can look better.
Yeah, something I might sometimes do to show visuals, the visual spacing thing is actually draw out the lines where the visual spacing is.
Yeah,
then potentially.
Yeah.
Then the mapper can maybe, for example, recognize, oh, this line is longer than this line, obviously.
And I'm
maybe
just gonna
two pictures comparing to.
Format this a bit better. There.
Yeah, putting sometimes making multiple paragraphs can make things more readable. Because that should be obvious, almost. Like having it as just one big block of text would be kind of overwhelming.
Now I'm going to make some comments on the slider velocity as well, and because slider velocity directly affects distance snap, it's going to be necessary to kind of involve this suggestion in the next problem, in the next suggestion I'm going to post.
You can maybe even permalink it.
That's what I'm going to do. Yep. So it is okay to use slider velocity changes, minor slider velocity changes in difficulties. But you need to, in easy difficulties, but you need to be careful in how they're used because this difficulty used it on like one specific object where it didn't really make too much sense.
Yeah. I think ranking criteria even says in the guideline that you should primarily use them on the differences between sections. It might not be in the ranking criteria actually, but basically you can use slider velocity changes if it goes from a less intense section or intense section and not on specific sounds. On specific sounds, it makes the slide able to play.
So I'm gonna just gonna point out the specific examples here. So this slider and this slider are set as different velocities, and the rest of the section.
Right now you have add a section at a different velocity. Always do a little grammar check, guys, by the way.
Why did it not map that? We'll get to that.
He did a taiko arrest moment, don't you know?
True. The ranking criteria has a guideline. We're just going to quote it. Here. Yeah, so I'm doing a lot of quoting of ranking criteria and doing like some longer explanations. If this was, say, a more experienced mapper, we wouldn't be going through quoting ranking criteria and stuff like that necessarily. It probably wouldn't be needed. So I've actually started with the suggestion and then mentioned the issue, then the problem, which probably makes more sense for this mod. As long as you cover the suggestion, as long as you cover the issue, the problem, and the suggestion, it doesn't really matter what order you word them in, just as long as it kind of makes sense to read. So yeah, we can post this. We're going to post it as a suggestion because it's not against ranking criteria.
There's also something when you're talking about order, I just got reminded of, which is I think many people do this differently, which is where to put the timestamps exactly in your explanation. I think for many people, the most intuitive thing when replying to mods is if there's a timestamp right at the beginning, and then there's an explanation. But sometimes I feel like it can make more sense with the structure of the sentence to have the timestamp in the middle. That's one of those things where I think many people do it differently. I try to, whenever possible, to put a timestamp right at the beginning, because people usually click on the timestamps first before they even read.
This also makes sense when posting in timeline specifically as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've just done a link to this mod here, just to mention that if this mod is applied, to be careful because changing the slider velocity will affect spacing of any distance snaps. Because these two mods if this mod is applied, it could affect this mod, depending on the order that they're applied. So if this mod applied this first, if the mod applied this first, and then applied this, the distance snaps would be all wrong. So, yep.
Did you do a permalink?
Yeah, we did, yep.
Oh, I couldn't see it. Color looks the same when everything is so bright.
Now I'm actually just going to go to the problem I noticed before. Whereas this probably should have been mapped as a 1-beat slider. The reason I'm saying that is because this vocal rhythm repeats. Here it is. Yeah, so I'm going to post this here. You should place a 1-beat slider here to cover the vocals, also to make it consistent with the rhythm used. So I'm going to reference another part of the map in this mod post.
Yeah, I think it's generally good to do mods based on inconsistencies, where you take one part of the map and explain another part of the map through an inconsistency between them. That's probably a really safe way to mod almost anything, because you sort of somewhat avoiding the thing where maybe you have a personal issue with something, but it's not an issue with the map structure itself. Yeah, you can sort of avoid it by talking about the actual structure of it, by comparing things.
Yep. Now it does say
Or
that
say even, sorry,
there's some
you go on.
posts around, which I'm just going to double check. It's about new combos. It's about clicks. So it looks like this note might have actually been removed for some. Oh no, it says clickable half beat. Oh, it must have been deleted. Okay. So this doesn't apply either. So none of these posts suggest my concern. Post a suggestion.
Oh, can you maybe check the general rhythm density of the map?
Yes. I wasn't going to go too in depth on each of these diffs, but.
Okay. Because I noticed that it felt like somewhat dense for an easy, although I guess it's like super short, so. And there are a lot of like these half-beat sliders.
Those
are not a good idea.
There's a lot of these like 2-beat rests that are like actually quite structured. I do think the rhythm could be better here.
Yeah, you don't want to use as many half-beat sliders. And then that can maybe even be a general suggestion, that you shouldn't use as many half-beat sliders.
Yeah, like this, for example, the suggestion could be extending this, like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we could put this as a general suggestion, although I think there's only two. Oh, there's some here.
There's even more, I think.
I think because there's not many, and there's different reasons as to why they shouldn't be used. I will actually post them individually, so I'm not like combining two explanations into one.
Okay.
So I'm gonna put it would be best here if you removed the half-beat sliders, as they are not too fitting for an easy diff. Shall we quote ranking criteria? We're kind of bored of quoting ranking criteria.
I'm not sure if they even. I think there might even be a specific point about those, but yeah, I'm not sure if you do.
Rhythm should primarily consist of 1-beat and 2-beat rhythms.
Yeah, there's even more specific one, I think. But yeah, that one is fine as well.
I could also make a comment that they don't appear too often. Though it's a short song, I think there's no point mentioning that.
Yeah, that's might even be a point against yourself.
Yeah. So the song could also be followed more closely by using a rhythm like this. And then I'm going to create the rhythm that I was going to suggest, which is this. And I'm going to screenshot it and put it in my post.
If screenshots about rhythms, I usually only make a screenshot of the timeline, because let's say I make an actual pattern on the playfield and show it to the mapper. It could be that they like, I don't like that. Again, it could be that they do the thing like I said earlier, where they focus on something unrelated to dismiss my argument. Like, I don't like this pattern, even though they haven't said anything about the rhythm.
Yeah.
So just screenshotting the rhythm can maybe be more convincing.
Yep. Are there any half beats? There's that reverse. So I'm going to permalink to this, but I'm going to give different additional reasoning. Or rather a different suggestion.
Avoid using sliders shorter than half of a beat. These are too fast to be comprehended by new players.
You should reply to my post with that.
Okay. I can do that. I can add an also. Reply.
That's kind of a bad suggestion. I'm not going to do that. Actually, we want to follow vocals, really.
What if you almost always want to follow vocals?
I'm going to scroll out so it can easily be seen. One thing you need to be careful of when screenshotting the timeline is that it's kind of clear at which point you're talking about. So a lot of the times when you screenshot a timeline, you should make sure, I think people don't really think about this, but you should make sure you have the combo colors enabled when you screenshot a timeline.
Yeah. Also, you shouldn't, it can sometimes happen where if you're modding something, you might change the combo colors. Or you might have previously in the map moved something around to show a different suggestion. And if that's in the screenshot, if the combo colors are different, if the numbers are different, that's going to be really confusing.
Yeah.
The person will look at the picture and be like, well, this doesn't help me at all.
If you haven't already noticed from the previous suggestion I gave, whenever I do edit the map in some way, once I've taken my screenshot, I just Control Z everything. So it's back to how it was. I think that's all we're going to mention on the easy. Because we are mainly just going through this example to kind of just give an idea of how modding actually works when you start to mod. So we'll actually just go straight to the top div.
Ignoring the normal div with the weird fucking shit. God damn it, John.
It's fine. I'm not actually modding this map. I'm using it as an example, so it's fine. Did this map yeah, this map got updated whilst I was modding.
You shouldn't do that. But... Oh yeah, he's replying to you right now.
This is really annoying. If you start to mod and the mapper starts to apply your mod whilst you're still modding. Yeah. It's quite annoying. Guy's not finished with it. It sounds but asking for mods. So actually, I think what might be quite interesting here is if Ikadax and Yukinoa try to post a suggestion on the top div. See if you can give some kind of suggestion on the top diff and follow kind of what we've mentioned so far about how much you need to explain to the mapper anything. If you want to post a general issue or a timely issue, find something you want to comment on, some kind of constructive criticism for the map, and make a post. Yeah, I'll link them up.
Damn, making the mentees mod.
This is a
Shameless.
mini assignment.
Mini assignment, and one of the mentees isn't even your mentee. Damn. Oh, I'm giving out the same assignment, so.
So okay, the next assignment is going to be modding related, so it's good practice.
Modding practice. Should I show an example of replying to mod? No, I can't. Actually, look. Oh, they replied to me. What?
So we'll give you you can post more than one mod if you want, but we'll give you like 5 minutes. And then there's a chance
Why
to
are
get
the
myself a
replies
drink.
not showing?
I'll be back in a minute or two.
Shameless. Well, you can map some augment stuff. So funny.
Okay, I'm back.
Welcome
And I
back.
also just got some slightly disappointing news.
What?
My flights got changed again.
Wait, what?
Because I'm going away next week, my flights got pushed back again. This is annoying. Although I suppose it does mean I have like an extra day or two to map, so whatever.
Now you can add more jumps in our collab.
Yep. Okay. Oh, UK. Let us know when you're done. Extra time to do the triangles.
The triangles. Have you seen my part already?
No, I haven't.
It's probably too intense. Should probably put it into the extra. You use increase SV for similar vocal. Probably better to take that approach with this pattern as well. That's good wording. Wow. Incredible.
By the way, so you should get your mentee's assignment is to mod Izanami's whale.
Maybe. Maybe we can do a lecture where we all mod it together. Except for me.
Okay, I'm gonna see what you've posted.
You don't really decrease SVs for any nodes like this. Better to just use 1x, yeah.
Okay, you increased SV for similar vocal where the vocal goes higher pitch.
Jack will be so happy. He's getting so many mods on this incredible map.
That's good wording, yeah. That's good problem it probably would have been best in this mod to kind of give a bit more of explanation as to why they should change it.
Well, maybe, although there is sort of implicitly an explanation, which is that it's in an inconsistency. Like you used it for something, but not here.
Yeah.
In a way, it is pointing to the issue while also reasoning at the same time. It could be argued that way, but it could be also potentially clearer.
Yeah, could be made a bit clearer. Maybe something like point out this pattern, say you should increase SV similar to this pattern. The increase in SV helps to represent the pitch very well, so you should do it on this pattern as well.
Something we haven't talked much about so far also is like sort of the length of the posts in general. Besides being sort of elaborate and mentioning, doing the reasoning, explanation, and then suggestion thing, you also want to have as a general goal to make your post as simple and short as possible, because them being too long will first of all seem too critical, and second of all will make it harder to understand or introduce more places where there could be misunderstanding. So yeah, for example, there's also a bit of a question whether you should have, like, say, I phrases in some on some websites or something. It's said that if you put a lot of "I feel like," just from my point of view, phrases into something, it makes the criticism seem more personal, and maybe the person will be more likely to actually apply it. But there's also another kind of point against that, which is that it unnecessarily makes your post longer.
Kadax, if you
in the guide that Electos from Electos that Yukino posted above, he actually suggests almost always removing those phrases from your vocabulary, which I feel like I almost kind of agree with. I've at some points started adding more of them because of once read that, but now I feel like I want to reduce them, the amount of them I use.
Kadax, if you want to mod the same slider, if it's because of the slider design, you should reopen that post. But if you're modding the slider for anything other than its design, like it's rhythm or something, you should create a new post. So it depends on why you're modding it.
Yeah, sometimes you might refer to the same objects, but you are talking about different issues. And if it's a different issue, then it should be a different issue post.
So if you was mentioning, for example, the slider head shouldn't have a finish hit sound, random example, then you would post that as a separate problem. You wouldn't reopen that one that you posted because that problem was about the slider design, not the hit sounding.
Wonder if that one post Kazak's made right now could potentially even be shortened.
Oh, one thing I would just like to quickly mention, Yukinoa, in why it is better to kind of elaborate on this a bit more. It's really an issue with the suggestion because when you say you're going to take an approach with this pattern as well, this can be like interpreted in two different ways by either removing the SVs at 25 seconds, no, removing the SVs at 14 seconds, or adding SVs at 25. Either suggestion makes it consistent.
Consistent.
So it's best to just explain, okay, you should add SVs here because it fits. Give a reason as to which consistency is better. That's
If
why.
you want to. Sometimes you might not want to. Sometimes you might want to map the mapper to just recite on their own. But it's important to keep in mind that whenever you have an inconsistency, there's always two ways of resolving it. The same way that if you say have an argument, you can either accept the conclusion or don't accept one of, or don't accept one of the premises.
Yeah. Well, Kadax, this is what you can do if you wanted to, is you could actually delete this and then reopen the other one. If I posted a mod point and then I realized it was covered in a different post, I would actually copy paste it, delete it, and then post it where it should go. That's up to you though.
Yeah, might also be worth considering what the mapper's reply is. If they were like, I don't care, then just saying the same thing again. You can expect that they will say, I don't care again, in a way. Unless you give like unless you think the person who first posted an issue gave like a bad explanation, you can give a better explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah. For example, let's say someone just makes a mod that's like, delete slider make circle. The mapper's like, no. You could potentially go in and be like, well, I would do what this guy suggested for this and this reason. And maybe you can be cheeky at the end and say, this is all bad mod, also funny, haha, or something. And then they will be more likely to maybe accept your reasoning because you agree with them that the mod is bad. Maybe. Also feel like in the post, the term slider consistency seems unnecessarily verbose. It seems almost like a kind of buzzword, where instead of saying it breaks slider consistency, you might want to say something like it seems just inconsistent, or not. It seems maybe you used say I've worded like you use straight sliders and free node sliders for most of the map. Maybe even replace free node with straight slider free node sliders for most of the map. This slider what wording would I use as this slider seems inconsistent with that. What would you use, Jordan? What would you word it? I don't know. I just feel like the phrase slider consistency seems
I would say that
unnecessarily complex.
this slider timestamp doesn't visually fit with the rest of the map. I would word it as simple as possible.
That would be really simple, in a way. Yeah, it's like this slider is different from every other slider, and the song isn't doing anything doing anything special. I was almost about to say for no reason, but saying something like something seems like it has no reason or is arbitrary, you don't often you don't want to say something like that, because that can also be understood in two ways. It's either you're saying the map has no reason, which, I mean, if it is true, even if it's true, the mapper might be insulted by it, something like that. Or it could imply you don't understand the map and you're still posting something, so you're stupid. So avoid saying something like, this makes no sense, or this seems can maybe say it seems arbitrary, but don't say this is arbitrary, this is random, this has no justification, this is pointless. Generally don't use phrases like that, I would say.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, well, I think given those modding examples, we could continue modding this map, but I feel like from the mods that you've posted, it wouldn't actually be that beneficial. It's at this point, it's more about knowing the kinds of stuff to look for. So you might want to check like hit sounding, and you basically want to check every aspect of mapping, like hit sounding, rhythm, visuals, comboing, combo colors, audio, basically just a lot of stuff. Like there's a lot of mapping guides which will break down in what order you search stuff. But when you start modding, you'll kind of have your own method to it. So for example, like I check rankability issues first. A lot of people may not actually do that. I
I
think
do that as well.
I think at this point it might actually be best if you just wanted to get more of an understanding of modding, maybe mod a map. Like it doesn't take that long to mod a map, depending on how in detail you want to be. And to be honest, it's not. You shouldn't be afraid. There's two things I want to mention. So firstly, you shouldn't be afraid of either posting bad mods or subjective mods. Reason being, you shouldn't be afraid of posting mods you think the person isn't going to apply, because you don't really know if the person's going to apply it or not. Now, a lot of people might not apply subjective mods, but it's my opinion that sometimes posting subjective mods can improve a map. If the only thing you've got to be careful of is the person you're giving this subjective mod to, because you kind of don't want to give someone a mod and then it makes their map worse. Um, but yeah, a lot of people avoid posting subjective mods for that reason,
Yeah.
and for the reason that they feel like the mapper may not apply it because there's not solid reasoning behind a subjective mod. Another thing as well, you shouldn't be afraid of posting bad mods because everybody starts modding somewhere. The more maps you mod, when you start modding as well, I strongly recommend checking the mapper's replies to your mods to kind of see if they applied it or if they gave you. Sometimes mappers will actually give feedback on your mods as well in the replies if they're good mappers. Um, so yeah, it's quite good. Starting out modding, try not to be so conscious as to the kinds of things you're posting and the kinds of maps that you're modding. Just like also don't be conscious of how much mod you do. It's okay to just go into a set and post 1 or 2 points and then leave it there. You don't need to give a detailed mod on every map
Or every difficulty.
or every
If it's,
difficulty.
say, a set with 10, 20 EDs, maybe you just don't want to do everything. I think on the I give 4 war mods to mappers to kill their spirit and make them kill sets. I've done that before as well. I started modding. I only made the huge posts because I thought it was so smart. Wanted to say something else, which is on the thing about posting subjective issues. On reason to maybe also, or whether you want or should point out those, also kind of depends on sort of like your own goals. For example, if you want to apply as a BN, then maybe you should. There's a kind of expectation that you should sort of tone down on the subjective issues, and you should try to follow the kind of general meta or modding etiquette, and be very interpersonal, very objective, point out issues that either most people would agree on are issues, or are issues in terms of the internal structure of the map, or are issues with ranking criteria. If your personal goal is to like just help someone out, or let's say maybe as John sort of earlier said, if you just know the person, if they're like a personal friend, then you can point out basically as many subjective things as you want. If your attitude is sort of like that, you just want to help someone out. If you make a post and it's a subjective issue, and they say no, then it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. It only really matters if you say have other kinds of goals. Like if you want to maximize the amount of suggestions that people accept from you, or if you want to apply for BN or something like that, then there might be other reasons to be less subjective.
Yeah,
But
it
if
is.
you don't have that kind of goal, then it doesn't matter. Then it's just okay. He disagrees. Who cares?
Yeah, this is. It's my opinion that a good mod contains subjective mods.
I would agree.
If you think of it this way, if a mod only focused on problems and ranking criteria, let's say a map starts out at a 5 out of 10. If you only post problems and ranking criteria, it's only going to get as good as like a 6 out of 10. There's like a cap as to how good it can get. Whereas if you were to start more posting subjective issues, it effectively increases how good the map can get.
Yeah. I mean, also you have to, even if you're going for BN, you must point out intersubjective and not just objective. Like you can't just get away with talking about the ranking criteria. You have to talk a little bit more. But then I totally agree with what John is saying. Even if you point out all sort of the intersubjective issues, you talk about all the things that many mappers would agree would make this map better. In a way, that won't ever make the map sort of outstanding quality, or you won't improve the or sometimes when you make a mod or give criticism to someone, you don't even want to talk about the map on its own. You want to talk about the kind of things the person could be doing in the next project they have. This is what say doing text chat feedback or giving mentoring is for, right? You're not just talking about specific maps, you're actually talking about you seem to make this specific issue in this map. Maybe in your next map you can improve on it, or maybe a mentor can even say, you've done this issue in like 4 or 5 maps so far. You should really focus on that. Well, doing it in a single mod on modding v2, either it's not expected that you do that and it seems kind of weird, or yeah. So
Yeah.
just giving intersubjective or objective ranking criteria mods, that's just that's not going to make the mapper like a really good mapper. They have to get feedback somewhere else.
Yeah, it's not going to actually, at that point, it's not really going to improve the map as much, and it's not going to help the mapper as much as well. And this is the issue with BN mods. Because BNs rarely post subjective issues like that, whereas people who aren't BNs or aiming for BN do, just because there is like expectations.
I mean, there is also a kind of thing where it's like once you've become a BN, you could theoretically start being more subjective. It's just that you like you don't have to worry about applying anymore. You just have to at that point worry about not missing anything which will cost you your BN job. Like if you have a map and you look at it and you're like, I'm not sure about the timing, then you can't just go, okay, I'll just like suggest something, or like I just ignore that and go to something else. At that point, you like either you're wrong and you're either you're correct, or you're wrong and you're fucked. And yeah.
And BNs take maps they like anyways, which are mostly good maps. Well, that's also an issue. An issue with the whole BN system is BNs who are what we could call qualified modders. Probably the most qualified modders and those with the most modding experience aren't actually encouraged to give mods to new mappers, which is like wasted skill, basically.
Yeah, sort of. They're supposed to look at maps that are already good enough and then just put them into the ranked section. Overall, I mean, technically speaking, they can just do the kind of a good BN will do those kind of things. Maybe outside of their BN job or whatever, they will like actually be a mentor somewhere, or just randomly mod new mappers maps. Or when a new mapper like asks them, "Hey, Mr. BN, Mr. Mrs. BN, can you nominate my map?" They're like, "Well, no, I can't because of this and this and this and that." Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think at this point we've covered everything in what we wanted to discuss about modding. So if you've got any questions, then ask them now.